The Snow Queen by Hans Christian Andersen. 7th story. What happened in the Snow Queen's palace and what happened afterwards. The walls of the palace were of whirling snow, and its windows and doors of biting winds. There were more than 100 halls, formed as the snow drifted, the largest stretching many miles, all of them lit by the brightest northern lights, and they were so large, so empty, so icy cold, and so gleaming. There was never any form of gaiety here, not even a little bear ball where the gale could blow and the polar bears walk on their hind legs and put on airs and graces. Never a small card party with slaps and blows to the mouth. Never the slightest signs of a coffee party of the young white fox ladies. Everything was empty, large and cold in the halls of the Snow Queen. The flickering flames of the northern lights could be plainly seen, whether they rose high or low in the heavens, from every part of the castle. In the midst of this empty, endless hall of snow was a frozen lake, broken on its surface into 1,000 forms, and each piece resembled another because each was in itself perfect as a work of art, and in the center of this lake sat the Snow Queen when she was at home. She called the lake the Mirror of Reason and said that it was the best and indeed the only one in the world. Little Kay was so cold he was quite blue, black almost, but he did not feel it, for the Snow Queen had kissed away the icy shiverings, and his heart was already a lump of ice. He dragged some sharp, flat pieces of ice to and fro, and placed them together in all kinds of positions, as if he wished to make something out of them, just as we try to form various figures with little tablets of wood, which we call a Chinese puzzle. Kay's figures were very artistic. It was the icy game of reason at which he played, and in his eyes the figures were very remarkable and of the highest importance. This opinion was owing to the splinter of glass still sticking in his eye. He composed many complete figures, forming different words, but there was one word he never could manage to form, although he wished it very much. It was the word eternity. The Snow Queen had said to him, "When you can find out this, you shall be your own master, and I will give you the whole world and a new pair of skates." But he could not accomplish it. "Now I must hasten away to warmer countries," said the Snow Queen. "I will go and look into the black craters of the tops of the burning mountains, Etna and Vesuvius as they are called. I shall make them look white, which will be good for them and for the lemons and the grapes." And away she flew, leaving little Kay alone in the great hall, which was so many miles in length. He sat and looked at his pieces of ice and was thinking so deeply and sat so still that anyone might have supposed he was frozen. Just at this moment it happened that little Gerda came through the great door of the castle. Cutting winds were raging around her, but she offered up a prayer, and the winds sank down as if they were going to sleep. On she went, till she came to the large empty hall and caught sight of Kay. She recognized him immediately. She flew to him and threw her arms around his neck and held him fast while she exclaimed, "Kay, dear little Kay, I have found you at last." But he sat quite still, stiff and cold. Then little Gerda wept hot tears, which fell on his breast and penetrated into his heart and thawed the lump of ice and washed away the little piece of glass which had stuck there. Then he looked at her, and she sang, "Roses bloom and fade away, but we the Christ child see alway." Kay burst into tears. He wept so that the splinter of glass swam out of his eye. Then he recognized Gerda and said joyfully, "Gerda, dear little Gerda, where have you been all this time, and where have I been?" And he looked all around him and said, "How cold it is, and how large and empty it all looks." And he clung to Gerda, and she laughed and wept for joy. It was so pleasing to see them that even the pieces of ice danced. And when they were tired and went to lie down, they formed themselves into the letters of the word which the Snow Queen had said he must find out before he could be his own master and have the whole world and a pair of new skates. Gerda kissed his cheeks, and they became blooming, and she kissed his eyes till they shone like her own. She kissed his hands and feet, and he became quite healthy and cheerful. The Snow Queen might come home now whenever she pleases, for there stood his certainty of freedom in the word she wanted, written in shining letters of ice. Then they took each other by the hand and left the great palace of ice. They spoke of the grandmother and of the roses on the roof, and as they went on, the winds were at rest and the sun burst forth. When they arrived at the bush with red berries, there stood the reindeer waiting for them, and he had bought another young reindeer with him, whose udders were full, and the children drank her warm milk and kissed her on the mouth. They carried Kay and Gerda first to the Finland woman, where they warmed themselves thoroughly in the hot room and had directions about their journey home. Next they went to the Lapland woman, who had made some new clothes for them and who put their sleighs in order. Both the reindeer ran by their side and followed them as far as the boundaries of the country, where the first green leaves were budding. And here they took leave of the two reindeer and the Lapland woman, and all said farewell. Then birds began to tweet, and the forest was full of green young leaves, and out of it came a beautiful horse, which Gerda remembered, for it was one which had drawn the golden coach. A young girl was riding upon it, with a shining red cap on her head and pistols on her belt. It was the little robber girl who had got tired of staying at home. She was going first to the north, and if that did not suit her, she meant to try some other part of the world. She knew Gerda, and Gerda remembered her. It was a joyful meeting. "You're a fine fellow to go gadding about in this way," said she to little Kay. "I should like to know whether you deserve that anyone should go to the end of the world to find you." But Gerda patted her cheeks and asked for the prince and princess. "They are gone to foreign countries," said the robber girl. "And the crow?" asked Gerda. "Oh, the crow is dead," she replied. "His tame sweetheart is now a widow and wears a bit of black worsted around her leg. She mourns very pitifully. But now tell me, how did you manage to get him back?" Gerda and Kay told her all about it. "Snip, snap, snurra, it's all right at last," said the robber girl. She took both their hands and promised that if ever she would pass through the town, she would call and pay them a visit. And then she rode away into the wide world. But Gerda and Kay went hand in hand toward home, and as they advanced, spring appeared more lovely with its green verdure and its beautiful flowers. Very soon they saw the large town where they lived, and the tall steeples of the churches in which the sweet bells were ringing a merry peal as they entered it and found their way to their grandmother's door. They went upstairs into the little room where all looked just as it used to. The old clock was going tick, tick, and the hands pointed to the time of day, but as they passed through the door into the room, they perceived that they were both grown up, and they had become a man and a woman. The roses out of the roof were in full bloom and peeped in at the window, and there stood the little chairs on which they had sat when they were children, and Kay and Gerda seated themselves, each on their own chair, and held each other by the hand, while the cold, empty grandeur of the Snow Queen's palace vanished from their memories like a painful dream. The grandmother sat in God's bright sunshine, and she read aloud from the Bible, "Except you become as little children, you shall in no wise enter into the kingdom of God." And Kay and Gerda looked into each other's eyes, and all at once understood the words of the old song. Roses bloom and fade away, but we, the Christ child, see alway. And they both sat there, grown up, yet children at heart, and it was summer, warm, beautiful summer. The end.